for the Mexican cannabis industry. It's an informative event, but also an event in which we get to know each other as advocates, as stakeholders of this great nascent industry. My name is Adrián Cisneros, and I work for Harris Bricken, an American law firm, and the head manager of the Mexico office. Today, we are going to discuss for the international audiences, the Mexican regulation for doctors. In order to do so, we should start by discussing what's the general legal framework applicable to medical cannabis use. First up, we have to understand that even though the medical regulations came into force in January this year, that doesn't mean that medical use was legal from that moment on. In fact, medical cannabis use has been legal since 2017, when the General Health Law was amended to allow for cannabis use for rehabilitative, therapeutical, or pharmaceutical purposes. After that, it was mandated that the Minister of Health issue regulations to implement those amendments that had been passed on the General Health Law. That unfortunately didn't happen until January this year. And we have to thank to many advocates who filed amparo actions in order to have access to the right cannabis medications their plaintiffs needed for pushing to, so to speak, the government to issue, to implement, to create, and eventually to talk to all stakeholders in the industry in order to create these medical regulations. Okay, so at some point in 2018, in the last year of the past administration, COFEPRIS, the Mexican DEA, issued guidelines that allowed for some sort of cannabis indirect regulation, in that it allowed for commercialization, import, and export of cannabis for medical use under those rules contained in the guidelines. Unfortunately, those guidelines were short-lived. They only lasted for 5 months. And as soon as AMLO, the current Mexican president, took office, he ordered COFEPRIS to repeal them. So we were left again with a segment of the industry, the medical cannabis industry, that was legal, but was unregulated, which meant that there was no clear path to apply for licenses, to apply for permits, and most importantly, to exercise our rights to get the best treatment possible, even if that treatment meant to obtain medication with cannabis content that was not available in the country. A few more amparo actions ensued, and eventually the Supreme Court issued a deadline that had to be pushed 3 times for the medical cannabis regulations to be issued. Now we have a framework that is in place, and it's in the process of being implemented by the various agencies now in charge of applying these regulations for everyday purposes, and to give way to the various applications that cover the whole productive chain for medical use. This has been no easy task for the government. Right now, the Mexican government is undermanned, underfunded, and they are in dire need of education regarding cannabis, which is a very good opportunity to us as stakeholders in the industry, because we get to have the chance to tell the government the best way to let us exercise our rights, the best way to implement these regulations. But in the meantime, various ministries, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Tax Administration Agency, the Mexican IRS, and Mexican Customs, of course, COFEPRIS. All those are right now in the process of learning how to entertain these applications. That doesn't mean, of course, that they are unable to receive them. It's just that they're going to take longer, but that's what we are here for. So the market for medical use, in short, is open, and we have to understand that it has been legal in 2017, but it's only in 2021 that there is a clear path as to what we have to do if you want to obtain a cannabis license, covering the different links of the productive or supply chain for medical use. It is important to understand that, notwithstanding the fact that the media has mainly covered cannabis for medical purposes, cannabis for recreational purposes, sorry, is the only segment that is currently fully legal in Mexico. And by fully legal, I mean that it's legal, but it's also fully regulated, albeit with implementation gaps, is the medical use. Okay, recreational use, which is going to be the subject of other talks within this summit, is going to become legal later this year and fully implemented by next year. That said, what is the philosophy, or what was the reason behind the Mexican regulation, or the Mexican government regulating medical use of cannabis? Well, the medical regulations were mainly drafted with two stakeholders in mind: physicians and patients. Those are the two most important stakeholders in the Mexican cannabis industry in general. All other stakeholders, myself included, we support them. We help them exercise their rights, as do suppliers, as do growers, as do service providers, as do merchandisers. Okay, these medical regulations have a strong social and human rights component, which is something that I personally advocate for. Firstly, they intend to give due legal protection to the right to health, in that thanks to Supreme Court resolutions, they realized that that it was for some patients it was simply impossible to get proper treatment unless they had proper access to cannabis, which leads me to cannabis of high quality cannabis that could be traceable, which leads me to the second raison d'etre behind the cannabis regulations. They want to guarantee access to safe and traceable treatment, safe and traceable medical cannabis products. This is important because we have received several inquiries. We have dealt with several initial consultations in which people think that because medical cannabis is legal, anything that is currently merchandised in North America or in Europe can already be sold in the country. That is not necessarily the case. It's going to be a subject of another call, but it's mainly all those products, regardless of their CBD and THC content. It's going to be mainly those products that can qualify as medicine per the definition contained in the General Health Law. That is, they have to fulfill certain technical requirements in order to be considered medicine, and therefore in order to be sold into the country. Okay. Now, as to Mexican regulation for doctors specifically, the main question we receive is: a citizen, a regular individual, can he now obtain medicine? Can he now obtain any treatment or have access to any treatment that involves cannabis? The answer is yes. And how do you do that? Well, you need a prescription. The new cannabis regulations provide for the possibility for physicians, specifically surgeons, dentists, veterinaries, homeopaths, to apply before COFEPRIS, to apply before the Mexican DEA for what the regulations call a prescription booklet. Okay, that contains several prescriptions. They usually will last 1 to 2 months. They are serialized and they contain a QR code. Everything is going to be traceable. Okay, this application is entertained within 15 days. Okay, after that, or even in a lesser time, the regulations themselves state that 5 days. In practice, it might take longer. Once physicians finish up that booklet, they can apply for another one or for as many as they need once the previous one is used up. And when you apply second or subsequent time for a second or subsequent times, then the application is entertained in only 24 hours. However, it is important to understand that all these applications have to be filed in person. They cannot be filed online at this moment. Okay. Now, I'm seeing some of your questions in the chat. I'm going to address them right now. Yes, if you have a prescription, if you as a patient have a prescription, yes, you can buy you can buy medicine, you can buy prescription drugs with cannabis content, regardless of the percentage, as long as they are obtained with a prescription issued by a physician that has been previously authorized by COFEPRIS, that has been given this specific cannabis prescription booklet. Okay, this prescription will give you as a patient the right to purchase the drugs you need, of course to consume them and also to possess them. Okay, this also enables you to buy your medicines abroad if they're unavailable in the country, because the prescription can be used to apply for an import permit. Now, here's an important caveat. When you buy your medicines abroad, you cannot have the supplier send you the medicine through FedEx, DHL, or any other parcel service or the US Post Service. It has to, you have to retain the services of a customs broker, because these medicines, even though nowadays it is legal, it is prohibited to transport them using the services I have just mentioned. The products have to enter through Mexican customs. Okay, this prescription also allows you to travel with these medicines. You just show it to the airline, and in that case, only a copy is enough. The ones who need to retain the original, just like with any other regulated drug, are the authorized pharmacies, drugstores, or apothecaries that will be allowed through the relevant license to purchase. To purchase and then sell cannabis medication to end consumers. Okay, so that's basically the main legal framework for doctors. So I will now proceed to answer your questions. Okay. Hello, Amy. Good morning. The law doesn't really limit the amount of THC in medical products. That is what defines whether a product is actually for medical use is its purpose, is whether it fits in the definition of medication or of medicine as provided in general health law. If it has therapeutic, rehabilitative, or palliative purposes, if it fulfills the requisites of quality, quality, safety, traceability, etc., then it is considered a medicine, and therefore you can prescribe it, you can consume it, etc. It doesn't really correlate with the amount of THC. Now, Gladys, do you need a prescription if you're buying a product with less than, yes, again, regardless of a prescription, if you want to buy medicine with cannabis content, you need a prescription, and not just any prescription. You need you need a prescription issued by one of the physicians I mentioned, even dentists or homeopaths, but that give you a cannabis prescription, as which in turn comes from the booklet authorized by COFEPRIS. And whether it is required to have a prescription for any cannabinoid product with no THC product, this is a very good question, and let me tell you why. We have received many inquiries of people that say, okay, my product, the product I wanna import into Mexico is pure CBD, no THC. Can I import it under the current medical regulations? The answer is no, because most of the time, of course, you have to go case by case, but in our experience, most of the time, those products do not really qualify as medicine per the standards I mentioned a few moments ago. So since they just can't get into the country, the use or not of a prescription is not even relevant. Now, if you happen to find them in the country, and this is important, know that because we're aware that the CBD products are widely sold in the country, they are located in a very gray legal area, because in reality, those products aren't going to get really legalized until the new cannabis law that is going to regulate recreational and cannabis recreational and industrial use enters into force later this year. Now, Gabriel, for medical use, can I apply directly to COFEPRIS? Yes, exactly. Not anymore. The amparo isn't really gonna work for the application per se anymore. Okay, let me explain. Yes, you apply directly to COFEPRIS for a license of a permit, so long as it does not have anything to do with growing cannabis for medical purposes, because the growing licenses are going to be issued by the Minister of Agriculture. Okay, and that, by the way, is going to be the subject of another call, I believe, tomorrow or Saturday. In any case, I will be talking about it, so do not miss it. So other than growing, COFEPRIS is in charge of issuing all the relevant licenses or permits that cover the rest, that span the rest of the value chain. Since there is a process and formalities already in place, already specifically provided for in the medical regulations, albeit, as I've said, with certain implementation gaps, you cannot file an amparo anymore. The amparo action will only come in case that you file an application and COFEPRIS doesn't answer within the allotted time, which is 3 months. Amy, the cannabis flower be and end product that you envision being approved and available to make patients under prescription? Good question. No, that is not. I don't think that's going to be the case unless the general health law, which prevails over these regulations, is amended itself. Why? Because if you look at the definition of medication, in the general health law, it provides that that this type of vegetable material, flowers, leaves, since they cannot be used to, and I'm going to get a little technical here, even though I'm a lawyer. Perhaps I'm not the most, I meant to talk about the legal framework, so perhaps I'm not the most qualified to talk about this, but I will do it to the best of my ability. Per the definition, leaves, flowers, etc., cannot be stabilized enough to be used with an active ingredient in order to create a prescription drug. Okay, and therefore they cannot be used as an end product. For practical purposes, what this means is that the products that are most likely to obtain a health registration, as health registration is a document that COFEPRIS issues recognizing that that your product is a medicine and can be sold as such with a prescription and so on and so forth. Okay, these products tend to be pills, tend to be certain capsules, tend to be certain types of oils, things like that, but not vegetable material. I don't know if we have any other comments, questions. Amy, could you please write down if I clarified your question? Okay, excellent. So basically that'll be drug. I would like to expand now into what you as perhaps representatives of international cannabis companies, or you as international patients, or you as international physicians can do under the medical regulations. Okay. We oftentimes receive questions such as, "Hey, if I am a foreign citizen living in Mexico, can I purchase medical cannabis from a physician?" The answer is yes, just like any other prescription drug, so long as, again, you obtain that prescription from a COFEPRIS authorized physician. You need to get a cannabis prescription, not just any prescription. Okay. If I am an international cannabis company, I have a wide array of products. Can I export them to Mexico as of now? The answer is it depends. Okay. More often than not, you're gonna need to back your product, or more specifically, back your application for a health registration for your product with the relevant technical literature and trial studies in order to meet the requirements set forth for medication under the health law and applicable regulations. That is, you have to prove that the product is of enough quality. You need to prove that the product is safe. You need to prove that the product is innocuous, that is not harmful to human health, and that is not always proved with best manufacturing practices. That at most might enable you to prove or to give evidence of the quality of the product. But when it comes to the safety of the product or the innocuousness of the product, you need to show trial results. You need to show research protocols in some respects, and we also have connection with certain individuals and research institutions who can help you in Mexico draft research protocols. Okay, those are prerequisites that, alongside other documentary materials, you need to prepare your application and obtain a health registration for your product. Okay, that said, there are that have little to none chance of obtaining a health registration. One of those is vapes. The other are edibles, even if they're for medical purposes. As for any other products such as cosmetics, there's going to be the subject of another talk. That is not covered by the medical regulations at all. Now, another interesting question that we have received is whether a foreign physician, a foreign dentist, a foreign homeopath can apply for a cannabis prescription booklet. And this is an important question because there are cities in Mexico that are very cosmopolitan. Example, Mexico City, example Cancun, Monterrey, the cities bordering the US, all those cities with San Miguel de Allende, all those cities with a considerable proportion of expatriates or American retirees. Okay, they usually have a hard time, and believe me, I know what I'm talking about because I lived abroad. I lived in China for several years, and as a foreign citizen, you do appreciate the services, especially in your hour of need, of someone who speaks your language, or at least who speaks English. So yes, there are several physicians who have asked us whether they can prescribe cannabis drugs, cannabis medicines. Okay. They can apply for this prescription booklet so long as they have their medical diploma, their foreign medical diploma, recognized by the Mexican government, just like any other profession. You file an application before the Ministry of Education for them to recognize, compare, and recognize your studies against the current curriculum for the medical profession, and if they issue you a professional license, or in Spanish called cédula profesional, to practice as a physician. The medical profession is not as regulated here as it is in North America. So as long as you obtain the professional license from the Ministry of Education, and can prove residence in Mexico because you need an official ID, then you can apply to COFEPRIS for a cannabis prescription booklet. I don't know if we have any more questions, comments, anything that you would like me to clarify. Well, a little side comment on what I just said. Mexican agencies, more often than not, don't speak English, so it's a good idea to retain counsel or retain at least the services of someone who speaks the language. Oscar, do you have any comments, questions on your end?
Well, I can't hear anymore, but even if can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, well, maybe it's a current question, but maybe I want to say that, what do you think about Mexico medical business, about this area in cannabis in 5 years, in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. Thank you. I believe there's going to be a boom. I believe that the development of the Mexican cannabis industry is going to be led by two main segments: the medical industry, the medical use, and the recreational one. Okay, some people even say that industrial hemp is also going to come strong. I'm one of those. I'm one of those who share that opinion, in that it can help reactivate the economy. But medical cannabis is going to be an enormous source of revenue for not only for the private sector, but for the government as well. Okay, that does not come, of course, with side effects. And indeed, one of the greatest criticisms that the medical regulations have received is that they appear to be tailored to be tailored only for big pharma. It seems that the requirements can only be fulfilled by big established pharmaceutical companies. Although I must admit that it is not always easy to prepare the necessary application materials to file an application to ask for a license. The reality is that with appropriate counsel and by preparing in advance, it can be managed. The problem right now actually lies on the government side, because what we are seeing right now is that the government doesn't really know what to do with the applications it receives, but that is not the citizens' problem. So, like I said at the beginning of this talk, it is our job to educate the government into enabling us to exercise the rights that are already there in the law. In that respect, big pharma is going to push a lot for the government to get up to the task quickly, and that's why I'm of the opinion that they, along the big companies that are waiting for recreational cannabis to get legal, are going to be the ones who open the industry. We're expecting enormous sources of foreign direct investment flows, but also a lot of corporate transactions, company formations, joint ventures, because there is going to be a reorganization of the North American value chains when it comes to cannabis, at least, or at least that's what our clients, both actual and prospective, have been telling us. When is the Senate due to pass the current recreational legislation? Okay, you didn't hear from me, but very soon. And by very soon, it might mean that by May we might have AMLO signing the statute regulating recreational and industrial cannabis into law. Let's hope that it happens. To this day, I'm a bit skeptical about deadlines because we have seen that due to the pandemic or for any other reasons, the government sometimes doesn't comply with its own deadlines. So we'll see. We're hopeful. The publication of the medical regulations really raised the standard and elevated our hopes, but we'll see. May can be the date. How do the amendments made by the chamber affect the intention of the bill? No, it's okay. It's okay. In reality, the amendments made by the lower chamber, what they did, with certain exceptions, was what they did was streamline the actual bill as presented originally by the Senate. But that law is completely separate from the medical regulations, which leads me to make the following clarification, which is valid at this point. When we talk about legalization, like I said, many people have been misled by the way media portrays this. But legalization is not only about marijuana or recreational marijuana or the right to smoke weed. Okay, legalization is actually the opening of a whole industry, and that means that there are several statutes, several laws and regulations that interact at the same time. Okay, we have, on the one hand, for medical use, the general health law, the cannabis regulations for medical use that implement the general health law, and that in turn interact with some other existing regulations that govern, for instance, research trials, or how prescriptions are issued, or how medications are manufactured. And on the other hand, we're going to have the federal law for the regulation of cannabis. That's going to be the official name. That law, that statute is gonna provide for the legal framework concerning recreational use, adult use, and hemp, industrial hemp. Yes, elimination of the Cannabis Institute and putting the National Commission for the Prevention of Addictions in place, transforming it, that they will only govern adult use and hemp. And hemp in coordination, hemp specifically in coordination with the Ministry of Agriculture. Medical use will continue being governed by the Ministry of Health. And specifically by COFEPRIS. Yes, this institutional elimination, it depends on how you see it, Amy. Amy is asking if the way I am mentioning that the new laws and regulations are going to govern the industry seem counterproductive to the Supreme Court rulings, and that they keep a stigma in play. That has indeed been one of the arguments for put forward by many advocates, many adult use advocates, because for instance, they say, hey, if now consuming marijuana is going to be legal, then why do you put so many requirements in place, even for personal use? Why are there so many laws in place? Why do we have an agency monitoring medical use? The answer partly lies in what I mentioned at the beginning of this talk. The philosophy or the ideas behind the Mexican regulation of cannabis. They are mainly meant to regulate the right to health and the right of citizens to find a quality product regardless of whether they use it for medical or recreational purposes, but quality traceable product that does not put them in danger. That's a justification at some point behind what some advocates indeed call stigma. Now, whether that is counterproductive to Supreme Court rulings, I would say that it depends, because my personal opinion is that the laws and regulations can always be improved over time, but that's always better than having no regulations at all. Because that brings uncertainty to citizens, it brings uncertainty, and it certainly hinders the development of an industry. There are several products in the Mexican, Gladys, how do I classify products that are now in the Mexican market? Are they part of the recreational side? Is there another classification? You do find products, medical cannabis product, legal medical cannabis products already in the Mexican market. There are a few companies who managed to obtain licenses via amparo rulings when no regulation was in place. Any other products, tincture and lotions, all those, if you find them, they are in a gray legal area bordering on illegal. Okay, those cosmetics, all those types of products, I don't think I will be surprised if they are regulated, even in the law that is going to regulate recreational cannabis. And as of now, they are outlawed. Any other question? I need to regulate recreational. No, I think that they need a specific classification, just as happens in some other jurisdictions. But like I said, this also had to do with us stakeholders having to educate lawmakers. As of now, I believe that the priority is for the law to come out. We can always push the government for improvements along the way. We can always file claims to ask the court to tell the government how to or even the Supreme Court how to interpret certain provisions. That is going to help shape the industry as well. But for now, the important thing is to have a clear path as to what we can and cannot do, which we didn't have before January this year. Right now, and until the law regulating recreational and industrial use becomes effective, right now only medical use is available. Yes. But like I said, for every product, we have to go on a case-to-case basis. The key thing here is that the products containing cannabis, for even if they're for medical use, they have to qualify as medication, because anything containing cannabis is considered a prescription drug right now under Mexican law. That's the key, and that's what explains all the strict regulation in place. But if you happen to have a product that qualifies that enters into that definition, you can have a market here, because demand is already in place. So, any other question, comment? Yes. Yes, that is possible already, Amy. Doctors, dentists, homeopath, veterinarians can already apply to COFEPRIS for their cannabis prescription booklet, and yes, we also provide that service, by the way. So yes, feel free to reach out for us. Okay, there are no more questions. Oscar, I think that will be all. Thank you, everyone, for attending our very first talk within the Mexico Cannabis Summit. Welcome, everyone, to an event that is going to mark a before and an after for the Mexican cannabis industry. Nice talking to you. My name is Adrián Cisneros from Harrisburg. Thank you. Have a nice day, you too.